Everyone, Tired Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully everyone's doing well. Hard to believe that there's only a couple more times we get to do this before the end of 2023. Years are going by really fast. But it's the weekend forecast, as we all know. Anyone's that been a regular here on the channel for a minute, you already know how the deal is. Just really going to be looking over the entire country in general. Also touching on some stuff we went over yesterday and a few new changes here. So make sure you hit that like button. If you're new, smash that subscribe button and obliterate that share button, because in we go, and we're starting with the severe weather. So remember yesterday how I was saying, while this is very conditional, I wouldn't be surprised to see an upgrade. I considered the chance low at the time. Well, guess what? There we go. Here we are with our slight risk now, encompassing particularly the panhandle of Florida now. The track of the low pressure system that's going to end up bringing the severe weather threat forth, which is also looking to be populating more so around midnight on Saturday, has actually taken a little bit of a jog to the south here. But the main threat with this is going to be tornadoes and damaging wind gust. Now, I don't expect a widespread outbreak with this, but things could change with this just as they did yesterday. So, going to be keeping an extra close eye on it. And those who are pretty much in a line south of Orlando all the way to the Keys need to be watching this pretty close. So, that being said, that's pretty much the main thing that we have to be concerned with our severe weather threat. This weekend, as far as the wintry side of things, we're kind of lackluster at best. There's a couple places further up toward the northern plains and the northern tiers of the Midwest that could see snow, but for the most part, we have a lot of warm air in place right now, and that's going to continue heading into the holiday. So, for a lot of us, we're actually not going to get a white Christmas unless we're really in the mountains at this point. But we'll get into that a little bit later down the line here. But for right now, what we have going on this weekend is this storm system comes into play here. And one reason why I know for sure that we're not really dealing with winter here is because we don't have that 540 line. That 540 line on the pressure maps, and it's only shown at 500 millibars, by the way, is the 32-degree line, and it's nowhere to be seen here. And we pretty much continue to see that trend existent throughout the weekend here. And it's really not until Sunday morning where we start to see that 540 line, but it's well north of the border. Not going to be really a factor for anybody at this point. But here's what is going to be a factor, and this is Florida right here. So this is late in the evening. We do have this little shortwave that tries to develop here, and this is going to be the catalyst for our severe weather setup. And we continue to see that low begin to deepen as time goes on here, and this becomes more prevalent in the lower levels of the atmosphere in particular. But being able to see it on the mid levels definitely gives me a little bit more reassurance than I've had in previous days about this setup. So with that shortwave developing, and I'll kind of circle it for you so I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. The shortwave is going to be this area right here, and it's almost placed perfectly to where the peninsula is going to be dealing with the lion's share of the threat here. And the timing, again, OOZ in Eastern time is usually going to be about 7 or 8 o'clock. So this will be right at about midnight. So very much a nocturnal severe setup with both hail and not hail, but tornado and damaging winds possible. The hail threat's actually pretty much zero. Not going to really get any steep lapse rates with this setup here. So we'll watch this move off, and we do have actually a marginal risk for Sunday. Right now, I'm not expecting a whole lot, but we pretty much already called this area. I mean, it was pretty easy to tell that pretty much right along the southeastern Atlantic coast here is going to be the point of interest here. I think it's going to be pretty much a similar threat, and I think that maybe towards the afternoon we'll probably see this threat transition a little bit further towards the Carolinas here. I think the eastern part of the Florida Peninsula and maybe even coastal Georgia is going to be an earlier in the day type of deal. But pretty much the similar deal across the board here as far as the weather setup's concerned. Like I said, I really think this will be an early morning event a little further to the south, and then maybe by early afternoon for the Carolinas. Also a very conditional threat, but nonetheless here, we need to be keeping an eye on this as well. So we switch on over to the temperature maps here, and we'll also go ahead and take a look at the wind gust as well in just a second. But outside of the southeast, which we already kind of talked about yesterday, it is going to be mild, considerably cold, but it's not going to be anything that is going to help spark off some snow here. The track of the low pressure systems is going to be staying away from most of the cold here, which is going to be really centered around the Rockies here. Outside of that, further up to the north, that cold air is going to come in behind the low pressure here. So there's not really going to be any moisture for this to interact with the cold here. So that being said, not really going to expect expecting a whole lot in the way of snow here. And this will be existing all the way into Monday, of course. Could be some frigid temperatures ahead for areas a little further to the north, particularly towards the UP, where we could start to get into those 20s and maybe even into the teens. But nothing too outlandish for these regions here. They're a little bit more used to it. With temperatures, combine that with the wind gusts. Not really too much anything going on here. If you are outside, though, it could be a little bit cooler than you would like for it to be, or could feel a little bit cooler, I should say. But really, outside of where our storm system is going to end up coming together, the winds aren't going to be incredibly strong. Maybe towards the mountains, of course, where we're on that downslope, or that wave as it's called, we could have some higher winds. But outside of that, nothing too far out of the ordinary. 20, maybe even some 30-mile-per-hour gusts here and there. With that storm system coming in, of course, wind gusts are likely to be stronger over towards the peninsula. But outside of that, and maybe towards where that low ends up hanging around in the northeast, we could get some stronger winds up to about 30-mile-per-hour gusts. But outside of that, nothing too crazy to start out the week. A little bit further down the line, though, we may have to watch some of these areas for higher wind gusts. Maybe a couple wind advisories are possible. The next thing we're going to go ahead and take a quick look at is the precip map here. So we're looking mainly at precipitation type, and here's where you kind of see that not really too much anything's going on here as far as wind-free precip. Our low pressure forms up well over here, and like I said, 540 line is pretty far up to the north based on our pressure and thickness map here. So for the most part, we're dealing with very limited moisture, very limited cold, and also just in general, just not really a lot of cold in place that's going to really a lot for a lot of snowfall. This just isn't really a ideal winter setup for sure. A lot of the moisture, of course, a little further to the south, and warm air is advecting along with it, so it's just kind of working against it. So we continue to go on here. Here's that storm system as we go throughout the day into Sunday, and we see this work its way up the northeast. And pretty similar deal, because at times I was concerned about this potentially being a coastal storm, but look how far away that cold air is. Moisture is very easily outrunning that cold air. Even to the mountains, there's not really a lot of cold air in play. So, like I said, this is going to help keep the snowfall totals rather limited at this point. One thing that is to be made note of here is going to be the rain threat, in particular, of course, towards the southeast. And if we compare our models here, of course, the main bullseye is going to be the northern peninsula of Florida, and then, of course, South Carolina into North Carolina, where we could see some significant totals. NAM's very aggressive with this. We could see maybe up to about 7 inches of rain over the course of the weekend. We'll have to see if that actually ends up verifying or not, but I don't really think that's going to necessarily be the case. I really believe strongly that we could have some impressive rainfall here towards the northern peninsula. Maybe a little bit further to the south could be higher totals too, but I think 2 to 4 inches across the board is pretty fair. Here's some of the British models also being rather aggressive. I mean, with that low pressure organizing as it draws closer to land, of course, it kind of makes sense that we would have those higher totals. But pretty much across the board here, here's another British model that's a little less aggressive here. Mainly seeing in general about 2 to 4 inches across the board, the heaviest of areas. Euro's kind of being a little bit more passive with this as well. The Canadian model, very aggressive over here. This is actually showing more so towards maybe Georgia more so, and then South Carolina more than it is Florida, honestly. Then GFS, a little bit more passive with this. We could still see a pocket of maybe up to 4 to 5 inches possible. And really, other than that, we don't really have a outside the NAM. There's not really anything showing any crazy totals here on shore. Like I said, and here is actually the blend of models, by the way, which is basically a happy medium of all the models put together. But you can see, for the most part, heaviest totals stay offshore, but 4 to 5 inches couldn't be ruled out here. Target area looks to be a little further to the north here, according to the blend of models here, which is also interesting thing to make note of. So, like I said, there's still uncertainty with this. There's even a chance that the severe mode may fail entirely. But as a whole here, we're monitoring it, of course, just in case. And if needed be, we'll do an overnight nocturnal stream, and we'll see what happens there. But in any case, whatever it may be, I hope you guys are tuning in for that. But either way, I'll have a video up in the morning for you guys discussing the severe weather threat further before it begins, and then also taking a look ahead at what's next, because we have another storm system possibly on the way during Christmas time and some big changes. But hope to see you in the next ones. Appreciate you guys being here. See you soon. Horns up. It's Tire Metalhead Weatherman. You guys have a good night. Till next time.